So I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker, Prescription for Your Transformation, Real People, Real Conversations, and a Real Success. And I'd like to start off today by just sharing with you the wonderful privilege that I personally had over the years, because I grew up in 5 different countries and actually speak 4 different languages. And what's interesting about that is it allows you to have a completely different perspective of what life is really all about, what people are really all about. And what I found fascinating in my particular case is seeing how things in one country were absolutely opposing to what was in a different country, and knowing that each was right. And so as I would look at my life around me, I would look at it as embracing the differences. You know, in this world today, we're all trying to be equal. Well, guess what? We're not equal. And the beauty of our life today is that we are so different. Because in my opinion, in my world, that's truly the genesis of our creativity. It's truly the genesis of progress in the world. The challenge is that too often we are faced with challenges that are very scary, that really potentially compromise or sacrifice our lives in so many different ways. I mean, just look what's happening in the world around us. And so many unfortunate cases happen. And so how do we survive this? And so we can look at it from a personal perspective and just think of ourselves as our own microcosm and just take care of ourselves or perhaps our immediate family, and that's it, and forget about the rest of the world. But that doesn't deliver progress. The truth is that we live in our world today with over 8 billion people. And everything that I do, everything that you do, everything that everyone does in this world has an impact on everything else, as much as you're not aware of it, but it does. And so the question that we then have to ask ourselves, what's our responsibility in this world? What is it that we can contribute? And the first thing that I say is we must evolve. We all must evolve to a higher level of consciousness so that we can be more of ourselves, enhance our own potential, or actually, let me rephrase that, manifest our own true potential, and so that we can be so much more for this country. I'm delighted today because we're gonna be talking to this amazing woman who comes from Europe and has undergone incredible experiences that I can't even imagine what those are like. But the truth is that she's used this, and she's using this as what she calls being a change architect. She is inspired by others that are changing the world around us in the best possible way. And she's also an amazing instrument in the world that we have here in the United States in inspiring and coaching others to be part of that process of sustainability in this world. And so I want to welcome this amazing woman, Vildana, on this platform, Prescription for Your Transformation, that place where people have a voice so that you can discover different ways to approach our global citizenship. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, and it's a privilege to be here with you.
Well, it truly is a privilege for myself and everyone else listening, because it's all about perspective. And the truth is that when we limit our perspectives of the world around us, then we also limit, our contribution to the world, but more importantly, our own evolution. And so I would have to admit, it's unfortunate that you went through what you went through, but look at you today and being that architect, being that thought leader, so that other people can be inspired to change for the better.
Thank you. Well, I try my best. Yeah. Well, we can look at events in our life from a negative standpoint. We can see ourselves as victims, or we can kind of meditate on it a little bit and use that energy for the common good. So it's totally up to us.
So I'd like to talk first about your concept of global citizenship, because I absolutely love that concept. And then talk a little bit about your personal story, because I think that's relevant for people to appreciate, what they have in their life and actually what they can do with all the advantages that they have that you didn't have to get to where you are today. But what's the concept that you have about global citizenship? Why is it important? And perhaps even let us know a little bit about your involvement with the United Nations.
Yeah, sure. Well, I firmly believe that, alone we can do so little, and together we can do so much. Um, at a very young age, as a young teenager, I my life took a drastic turn, and I went overnight, literally overnight, from being daddy's little princess and enjoying my school and my all various activities to overnight being homeless, stateless, countryless, and just with our clothes on our bodies, passport, and going. I didn't know where that day when we were escaping the war. And so at a young age, for me, uncertainty became like a norm. I know people nowadays, oh my gosh, try to avoid uncertainty. They're planning, doing everything. But for me, uncertainty was a way of life. And going through being a refugee, the word that I don't like to use, but it is what happened. I realized that the world is so small, actually, that the nations don't matter, that the borders don't matter. I was stateless. I didn't even, my home country was falling apart. So 4 years later, I was still a young teenager, and I finished high school in Germany, and I decided to go back to a war-torn country. After the day, 4 years, I didn't see my dad, didn't see any of my family members. And then United Nations was there, NATO, they were trying to rebuild everything. And I found myself working with United Nations, and it was quite life-defining experience to work with people from all over the world. And so that really shaped me, not only culturally, but also intellectually and, of course, professionally. So that I realized at a young age that we're all one, that we're all interconnected, and that we need to be there for each other. So if there is a war happening in a country, or any crisis like we have right now in Puerto Rico, we have to be there. We have to help each other. It doesn't matter, if it's United States, or if it's Bosnia, or if it's Germany. So as a global citizen, we should have our feet planted in our country, but we should always have our eyes on the world. And it is our responsibility to be connected.
And here's what's true about that, because one of our own 6 human needs, and people are familiar with the world of Tony Robbins, is that we have 6 behavioral human needs, one of which is contribution, and that's more of a spiritual need. And we have experienced more fulfillment in our life, when we can contribute. Here's the truth about contribution. It can happen in so many different ways. And I think what happens too often, unfortunately, people realize, well, Puerto Rico is an island, and it's far away, and I'm completely disconnected with it, and I'm not going to do anything about it. And the truth is, we all can. And if we started focusing on what's right in the world, what's possible in the world, and I think that's the direction that you're going in with all the work that you do, is this world could be so much different. And you brought an interesting topic up earlier on, which I'm so glad that you're going to be talking about it. And it's all about, and it's things that I believe in, it's all about education and mobility. And you clearly had a lot of education and a lot of mobility. Even coming from a place of being at a disadvantage, you were still able to get the education that you wanted and still have that mobility. So share with us, how you feel that the young today can be educated and can be mobile at the same time.
Well, I consider myself, as a citizen of the world, and I believe that education is the most powerful weapon which we can use to change the world. I know in some countries we just think, okay, education is there, so we maybe don't appreciate it. However, in many parts of the world, people don't have access to education. So I also have when I was a refugee, what my mother told me every day is education is something no one can take away from you. So because we had everything, literally everything taken away from us. We had, no passport, no home, no country, nothing. We couldn't go anywhere. So as I said earlier, uncertainty became like a way of life. It was a norm. When something is certain, when something is going to happen, I mean, I would start to worry. I'm like, is this really real? Right. So that was one way thing. And then the other way, the other, so to say, strategy to deal with this adversity of being in a war is that education is something nobody can take. It cannot be taken away from you. So your country can be taken away from you, your father can be taken from you, your children, your spouse, whatnot, but education is something that belongs only to you. And I don't mean just formal education. I also believe that self-study. So I also teach at the university. I teach corporate responsibility, and what I always tell my student is one of the biggest attributes of these successful businessmen is that they're very curious. They always learn. They want to invent. They want to do new things. So I would say that, curiosity is something that really, really helped me. I would be in the libraries every day reading books about Eastern philosophy, reading books about political geography, trying to understand the world, because here I was in Germany, in a beautiful country, very safe, going to school every day. And then just a few hundred kilometers away from there, my country was falling apart in the heart of Europe. So it took me years to kind of understand. So for better or for worse, all those different incidents in my life, to call them, have made me who I am today. And the way I responded, it was based on those beliefs that my mother told me. And one of them was that education, something nobody can take it from you.
It's interesting you talk about education, and I think most people think very lightly about education today, and quite frankly, don't even have the proper appreciation of what education is. Education is not just going to school and learning a bunch of topics. It's knowledge isn't power anymore, but it's how to apply that knowledge and how to implement, your own either emotional intelligence or, IQ or whatever into making changes in the world today. And if we just spent more time educating our children, but more importantly, as you mentioned, also educating ourselves in our own personal growth, in our own personal evolution. Because what happens too often, particularly in the world today, in the world of politics or religion or whatever, is there's so much judgment based out of ignorance. And it just gets us all into trouble. And, the truth is that there's a lot out there that's scary. And so we fight against it in one way or another, but all of it comes from our own personal ignorance. And I'm not criticizing that. It's just that we can do so much better. If we just educate ourselves, if we evolve. So you're absolutely right. I've always said education is the key to our personal success in life and in the world, if we just spend more time getting the right kind of education. And what you did, obviously, reading all the books makes a huge difference.
That saved me, because I believe that when people go through very negative experience in their life, they become like natural fighters. So you can either be a positive fighter, or you can be, you can be constructive or destructive. And from what I believe, that our life, the way we live, what we talk, what we read, what we create, is our message to the world. And, my responsibility as a global citizen to make sure that that message is inspiring. Because I was exposed to inspiring people at a young age, and I wanted to be like them. I was maybe lucky. And I believe if people are going through negative experience, like, I can't blame them. They want revenge. They get triggered easily. Because they feel injustice was done to them.
Right.
I felt injustice was done to me. When I came to the United States to go to college, when I arrived in beautiful Miami University campus, which is the quintessential American university, and it was in Ohio, and everyone is so nice and friendly, and everyone say hi, and everyone is rich. All those kids arriving in their fancy cars, and here I am. I mean, I didn't even have money to buy a suitcase. I had like a little duffel bag, and I was shocked. I found myself being triggered, like, oh, this is unfair. They have everything. Their parents come visit. They have all the money. They can go out. They can go shopping. All the girls, they look pretty with beautiful clothes, and I did not have any of that. So I started comparing myself, and I was triggered, and it took a long time to learn. And one of my big lessons is never to compare yourself to others, because you are unique. And so I think that our emotions, our beliefs, and if we go through negative experience, I know how it feels. We just have to kind of trick our mind to say, hey, instead of reacting in a negative way, we have to use that energy and channel it for positive things. It's not easy, but it can be done.
So I have a question for you. What's success for you?
What's success? It's having a positive influence, positive impact on your, not just like, it can be in your community, in your country, in your nation, globally. But definitely having the power of influence is, for me, success. If you can reach that, but everyone has a different definition of success. And I found my definition of success changes over time. But overall, generally speaking, for myself, is to have a impact, to have a positive influence or someone or something.
Very nice. And I have to agree with that. The term I like to use is called emotional currency. It's a brilliant term that I learned from a brilliant guy by the name of Steve Linder from Strategic Brain. In my emotional currency, what really gets me excited and teary-eyed oftentimes is to see somebody else succeed, particularly against major adversity. And you see that most often in these athletes in Olympic Games who do these incredible things. But it's not only that. It's every part of life when you see somebody succeed and be the hero in their own life. I think it's huge. I like to add something about what you just said and then jump into how you do the work that you do today. You're consulting with Vildana's Choice and being a change architect. But just one thing I want to add to what you shared earlier on about comparing. And I was also challenged with that for a while, and I think many people are. And I resolved that very easily, and I resolved that by doing a different comparison. And the comparison was, where was I before and where am I now? And where do I want to be? And when I would look at other people and see what they had, that was just a standard of where I wanted to be, because there's no way I could compare with them, because I had no idea what was else in their life. I only knew what was in my life. And if the standard was to have a certain amount of wealth, whatever, however you want to define that, wealth and abundance can be defined in so many different ways. But I would look at other people and say, okay, that's my standard. That's where I want to go. So that's my gap. So I know where I came from. I know where I'm at today, and I know where I want to go. And it made my life so much easier then, because it didn't make me more or less than anybody else.
Yeah.
And it was just, this is the direction that I want to go to. And I just want to share that. But in your case, you came from the corporate world. You've got extensive education, which is absolutely brilliant in different countries as well, which is awesome in London and in Milan, and then here in the United States. And so that earns you the right, to do what you do from a global sense. But also you worked in corporate America, and now you have your own business. And I really respect what you're doing today, because more people need to have this approach. Because what's wrong in life is always available, but also what's right. What's not possible in this world is always available, but what is also possible. And what's possible is sustainability. And you don't have to be a tree hugger to think about sustainability. You can also make money as you're doing it and making this world a better place. And that's called conscious capitalism, conscious leadership, green leadership, green capitalism, whatever you want to call it. Capitalism, in essence, is an important part because we still have to make money. We still have, the monetary system. Yes,
dollar,
exactly.
The color of a dollar bill is green. So.
Well, there you go. So tell us a little bit, what is your approach, or what is your strategy, or what is it that you do, so that anybody who has a company out there can find you and knows what they can expect from you as, their consultant or their coach.
Well, the same way, like I said, that as an individual, I'm responsible to have a positive impact on the world. That same thing can be reframed for a company. I believe, I studied economics and I work in business consulting. So I believe that company, cannot function if you don't make money. But at the same time, you can add more value to your community, to the environment, and do so many positive things where you can change other people's life and where you can address global issues that we are facing today. So when I finished college, I started to work with Accenture, which is a consulting company. And I traveled all over the world, and I was really bored working in my office 12 hours, sometimes 15, sometimes 18 hours. And I was looking like, what else is this big corporation doing? What are the programs? I was 25 at the time. And then I heard for the first time about this term called corporate social responsibility. And I was fascinated that they do so many different programs, where one of the programs that I had to get involved with was going to Africa, where you promise that you're going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, you take a pay cut, you go to Africa, and you climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and you raise funds for Africa. And I was like, wow, this sounds much more exciting than sitting on my client side. I can go to Africa, I can meet those children, I can visit all the villages and see what is really there. So I did not even think about it. I signed up right away as soon as I read that. And that really inspired me. And I even today, there's so many amazing companies that do incredible things. And individuals, business owners, they're philanthropic. But that inspired me to create my own consulting company and help my clients thrive ahead of competition for long term and establish their own corporate social responsibility policy. If they don't have it now, if they want, so I can help them with them how to get involved, if it's just in their community or internationally or abroad, or even for their employees. I think implementing like a wellness program where your employees can go on a retreat, where they meditate, do yoga, I think even that shows a corporate responsibility and adds a whole new dimension to the culture of that company. But so our clients, they focus on the maximum impact for the environment and for the communities, and they offer sustainable and innovative solutions. Innovation plays a big part. I believe nowadays we're so advanced. We have all this technology, we have all these tools, cameras, lights, and whatnot. But I believe that technology is using us more than we are using technology. So there's so many apps that are incredible. They're amazing. Like there's an app for meditation. There's an app to track your steps, that you can measure how much you sleep. Those are the apps that I promote, and that type of technology to actually improve our well-being instead of other ways. Like people complaining, oh, I can't sleep. Yeah, you can't sleep because you have your phone in your bed. So I think over time, we have become slave to technology, and instead of the opposite. So that's why innovation, there is so many other tools that you can use to make a difference in the world and make yourself a better, healthier well-being. And that's another mission. And overall, we want to accelerate the culture shift towards a healthier, more sustainable lifestyle with an eye on future generation. And that we do by empowering consumers and making impactful businesses more successful. Or if you don't have a strategy how to be impactful business, then we will help you how to come up with one.
So I have one last question as we wrap it up, and this may be a tough question to ask you, but it's a question that I'm very curious. And what's the reason? Well, let me rephrase that. Do you find in general people that there's a general unwillingness to participate in this kind of process of being more creative, more generative? And if that's the case, with that unwillingness, what do you think that the hurdle is? What do you think is the main challenge for people to think outside of themselves so that they can, contribute beyond themselves? I mean, what do you think that is?
I agree with you that there is a notion of people that they, why do I have to care about others? Why do I? For me, for my case, that's why I'm very, very, very grateful for all the events that happened in my life, because it gave me a whole new dimension looking at the world, and it gave me so much empathy and drive and desire and passion. So maybe people are just numb, they're disconnected. How can they get connected? I don't know. It takes a lot of time. It takes probably, depending on case to case, maybe they have to travel, get out there, experience, go to a crisis place like now Puerto Rico, go there and feel that, feel the fear, feel the smell, the fear, and I think when you face that will give you a whole new perspective. But then again, I don't justify that. I think we're all we see a lot of stuff happening. We have access to information. There's no excuse not to get involved. There's no excuse not to be conscious. I think it is not only a responsibility, but it's our duty, especially in the Western world.
And I would agree with that. And the truth is that there are so many different ways that you can help. And quite frankly, this is what I do. My way to help the world is by having this platform. It's all my time. I don't charge anybody for anything of this. And I just get excited by promoting everybody else and with the hopes that when people listen to these interviews today or in the future, they identify with interviewees like yourself. They resonate, with your gifts, with your talents, with your passion, and then say, you know what, I really want to connect with you. Really want to find out more about you. Please help me, become more, responsible socially with my corporation. What a beautiful thing, because what I'm finding is that oftentimes it's what people don't know that they don't know that's going to make the difference. And that was my case in essence, because I came from a completely different background. Pretty much, very, very lucky my entire life. No real major trauma except, my mom, when I was 18, just entered medical school then. She was in a very bad car accident. But it wasn't something that, in essence, affected me directly like it affected you, in your country. I didn't have to run away. I didn't have to hide. I didn't have to do any of these things. But it was the spark that said, okay, great. And now I need to take all the privilege I've had in my life and find a way to give back, what I've gotten. And everybody has a different reason, different perspective, different drive, and different passion. And that's true. But the truth is, and you said it so eloquently earlier before, is that, we can all work together. And we can do so much more together. And if we just did that, if we, we just work side by side our neighbors, says, hey, what can we do right now? And make the life in this world a much better place. So I really want to thank you for today.
Thank you.
I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker, Prescription for Your Transformation, Real People, Real Conversations, Real Success, talking to a thought leader and change architect, an amazing story, an amazing passion, And so if people want to reach out to you, how do they find you?
Well, you can use the Facebook. I have my Facebook page out there. I can also provide, I don't know if you have show notes, or maybe I can comment with my email address. If
Yes,
anyone
that'd
has
be
any
great.
questions, would be more than glad to answer and get in touch with anyone.
Perfect. So I'm very privileged and honored to be talking to you today. And so I would like to give you the opportunity to share some words of wisdom for any of our listeners.
Some words of wisdom. Well, as I said earlier, alone, we live in a fear-driven culture. There's fear everywhere. I mean, we're bombarded with information, we're bombarded with news, and but we're all starving for wisdom. We're all, there to help each other. And I think that alone we can do so little, and together we can do so much more. And let's turn this fear energy into love energy, so we can make this world a much better place.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Vildana. Once
Thank
again,
you.
I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker, and thank you so much, and I'll be back tomorrow.